Ashanti Copeland, and I want to thank you for joining my channel today. If you haven't, please subscribe down below. And I'm here today because this is my story. So I am a single mother of two, divorced mother of two young boys. Gabriel, he has a YouTube channel. It's called Gabriel's Playground, and Devontae, his YouTube channel is called Devontae's Adventures. And so I'm very active with my kids, and they inspired me to tell my story, along with other oncologists and doctors here at Riverside Hospital, along with VCU, Massey Cancer Center in Richmond, Virginia, and Dana-Farber. So you'll find out a little bit later how I came to have 3 different doctors and possibly more. But just a little bit about my background. I would say that I wasn't the healthiest eater, but I didn't believe it had any determination as far as getting the disease, multiple myeloma, which is what I was diagnosed with. In September of 2019, I, in my opinion, was living my best life. However, I wasn't as happy as I would love to be, because I was on a mission. I was on a mission to provide for my 2 young boys, to sustain a lifestyle that I had accustomed them to, and just working very hard. You know, it's a little bit easier now to put a smile on my face than it was when I was diagnosed. In September of 2019, I was actually on a business trip in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I had just flew in. But before flying in, I went to the shoe store, bought some shoes, and I bent over and I felt a pain in my rib cage area. And I thought it was nothing. I thought I just kind of hurt myself because I was bending over tying my shoes as a heavier set woman. So it was a little bit more than that. I came out to find, you know, I made it to the airport, and even in the airport, I was not feeling my best. However, I kind of just chalked it up as something that maybe I had felt in the past. And we get to Las Vegas. We arrive at 10 o'clock at night. And, you know, the city is still live and vibrant. And I'm excited and I'm ready to go out and I'm, you know, do something. So I took my bags to the room. And I was hungry, so I went out that evening to grab a bite to eat. And, you know, that evening I was beginning to feel a bit sluggish. And I just basically chalked it up to being out all day, trying to get things done, getting to the airport, flying into Vegas, putting my bags away, and then walking around the city. So I was actually fine walking around the city. It was late evening, and we went to have dinner at Caesar's Palace. And dinner was fine. Didn't really eat too much. However, you know, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and went with one of my colleagues to the store. And of course, it was already bright early. The sun was out, and I began to feel winded on the way out the door of the hotel. And so I walk a little bit slower. And as we get outside, I make it to the corner of the hotel. However, I'm holding onto the pole by this time because I'm feeling like something's not right. It was very sunny outside, so again, I chalked it up to be something other than what it was. I said, okay, I'm dehydrated. I need to get some water. Since we were going walking to the store anyways, which was across the street, you know, I pretty much was able to do that journey, you know, many times over. So as we were going across the street, I began to slow down even more and more. And at this point, I now feel not only dehydrated, but I feel like I want to throw up really bad. You know, I didn't want to bring it to anyone else's attention. I just wanted to handle it on my own, you know. It's been a long time since I was sick, and I don't know what brought it about. And I'm thinking that maybe because I ate so late, it's causing my stomach to be upset. So we get to the store, and I sit down for a little bit, and the store is actually very cool. And so when I saw a chair, I sat down immediately and I instantly felt better. I just sat there for a little bit and then I said, okay, I caught my breath. I said, I'm fine. I'm going to go where my friend is and I'm going to meet her. And so as I'm walking to meet her, that feeling comes again. And so I finally catch her attention and I just let her know, like, listen, I'm not feeling too well. And then that's when I feel nausea coming up. So I run out and I run to the bathroom. And sure enough, I vomited in the trash can. And after vomiting, I felt better. I put water in my mouth, switched it around just long enough so that we can get back to the hotel and I can freshen up. Well, upon leaving the bathroom, the feeling comes over me again, except for this time it's not nausea. It feels like dehydration once again. So I thought my story ended at the bathroom, and it didn't. And I couldn't make it back to the chair that I was sitting in originally, so I just laid down on the floor. I laid down on this concrete floor, and it was very cold. But when I lay down and my body was at rest, I felt so much better. And the police officer came over to me because we were in a distillery, and I'm assuming that he's thinking I'm high or something. And I just kind of let the police officer know I just flew in and I was just accompanying a friend. However, I wasn't feeling my best, but I seem to be okay now. And so that's when I noticed that cold surfaces seemed to relax me. Sitting down or laying down helped me to feel better. But we had this very short journey back to the hotel coming up, and I was daunting to have to walk across the street to the door of the hotel. I felt like a very long travel that I had to take, and sure enough, I got off the floor. I was feeling fine. The air in the store was still cool. However, as soon as I walked out the door, the heat began to really drain me. And this time I'm really trying to pay attention to what my body is telling me. So I'm like, okay, my father's been dehydrated before because he works outside. So I need to find somewhere where I can go and kind of rehydrate myself. I drink water over and over and it didn't help. Got back to the hotel room. My colleagues went to a business function and I just didn't feel up to going. So I laid down in the room for a little bit and I felt fine. Went down to the pool area because it was shaded somewhat, and I actually felt okay. However, once the sun began to move around in my direction, I began to feel sick again. And this time I was nervous because I was on my own. Made it into the elevator and I just couldn't stand anymore. The only place that I felt my best was at rest. So I immediately sat down on the floor with people entering and exiting the elevator all the way to my stop. And once reaching the floor that I was on, I couldn't stand. So I literally crawled all the way back to the bedroom. Tried to take a bath. I made the water warm, and it still hadn't connected with me for some reason. That heat was just not my thing. And I made the water warm, and I nearly passed out in the bathtub. And it drained me to the point that I no longer even had the energy to get out the bathtub. So that was a long battle being in the hotel room alone until hours later when my colleagues came back and I received assistance from some of the females that were helping me. And that pretty much was the end of my 5-day trip. I didn't make it past day 1. So I basically laid in the bed the whole vacation and business trip basically. I drink a lot of fluids, and I found a location that gives you, of course not gives you, but I had to pay $400 just to be rehydrated. It's one of those locations in Vegas that if you're too intoxicated, you can pay to become rehydrated. So I went to the location. I had an Uber drop me off at the location. To be honest, I felt so good after the rehydration. I was able to actually go probably about an hour longer than I had been the whole trip to do something. And, you know, I tried to go out with my colleagues again, but that hour began to pass. My body began to drain again because of the heat. And my friends didn't know me to be this person. At the same time, they weren't thinking that anything was too wrong because I still had a smile on my face. I was still trying to make the best of everyone else's vacation. And I didn't want to get anyone else down. And so at this point, I tell them to go ahead. I'm just going to sit here for a minute. And next thing you know, I'm laying on the concrete under another hotel on the ground as cars are passing me. And I just couldn't bring myself enough energy to get up. So I basically called an Uber to pick me up and just take me back to the hotel. And I didn't even attempt to try again. The hardest travel I had was leaving Las Vegas and flying back into Virginia where my mother was. And, you know, I kept her abreast of the situation while I was in Vegas. So when I arrived, they took me to urgent care. Urgent care created this solution to help me with the nausea. However, once I got back home, I basically slept for 3 days straight. And my family was beginning to get worried at this time. And again, I have 2 young boys that I care for. They were 4 and 10 at the time. And I couldn't even care for my kids. I was barely awake long enough to do anything. And I just don't know how this randomly came about. It was very difficult for me. At that point, I just slept. You know, I didn't really feel any pain as long as I lay down. Well, we went back to urgent care, and urgent care took my blood. And at this time, they were letting me know that they could no longer treat me and that I needed to go to the ER. So we actually make it to the ER, but by that time, I'm already passed out again. So from the ER to getting admitted and being in my own room, that is a gray area in my memory that I'm not too sure about. Upon waking up in and out of a daze for the course of, I believe they said I was out for 3 more days. And I can only assume that my mom was there with me the whole time. But waking up over the course of those 3 days, I had multiple doctors standing in front of me, but I wasn't awake long enough to really talk to them. The information that I get now that, you know, I see those same doctors from time to time, they like to discuss how they thought that I was a goner, that I was done, that those were my last days, because they couldn't really explain what was going on with me, and I wasn't coherent enough to speak with them to let them know if I had ingested anything or taken anything or done anything. But I do remember waking up long enough to give permission for them to talk to my mom. They kind of just blurted the sentence out and was like, "Can we talk to your?" And I was like, "Yes, you can talk to my mom." And next thing you know, I was back out again. But when I finally came to after the 3rd day, there were doctors standing in front of me. When they saw that I was awake, a nurse sent for the doctors and they introduced themselves. So there was a kidney doctor standing in front of me. The kidney doctor politely just said that my kidneys look like they're about 75 to 80 years old right now. They're severely damaged. At the time, I really didn't know what that meant. I'm like, you know, people have kidney transplants all the time. No big deal. I mean, it's a big deal. But in my case, I was like, okay, I'm still alive. My eyes are awake. Then I had another doctor in front of me, a primary care physician, that let me know that, you know, they have run a lot of tests and they need to do a few more tests because they are coming up with conflicting views as to exactly what it could be for a woman at my age. I was 39, and so for a woman at my age, they were saying, you know, you can't have this thing because people normally get multiple myeloma when they're 70s, 80s, like later on in life. And I didn't know what multiple myeloma was until the third doctor introduced themselves, and they said, "Hi, I'm an oncologist." And once they said that, I quickly understood that they were speaking about cancer. This is how cancer changed the course of those weeks that I was in the hospital from that point on. So I had a biopsy completed because they wanted to be absolute that this was multiple myeloma for a young woman my age, and they wanted to treat me quickly because if it is multiple myeloma, at this point they were saying that I was basically in my last stages because they're seeing a lot of lesions, and basically lesions are small tumors, different areas of holes in your bones, little holes in your bones. They could be very tiny, but if there are a cluster of lesions in one area, then you can have challenges where your bones begin to fracture or break and various things of that nature, which I will get into in another video. So at this point, they're basically telling me that from my skull to my toes, they are very concerned about my condition, and they can't really treat me until they get a complete diagnosis as to what it is so that they can treat me. Well, at this point in my life, I heard everything they had to say. However, I didn't fully comprehend how serious over the next few months or years that it was going to be. And for me, I'm thinking I need to get back to work. You know, in my past, I've been a professor. I've worked for the federal government. And at this point in my life, I was now an independent insurance agent, life insurance agent. And I wanted to keep my rank with the company. I wanted to continue to satisfy my clients. And then I wanted to continue to do business because as a divorced mother, all I could think about is providing for my kids. I need to provide for my kids. Not even knowing that I was going to need someone to help provide for me. So we get the results back, and they determined that it's multiple myeloma. So we start the process of placing a catheter in my arm, so that instead of them doing lots of blood draws, they're going to use this catheter in my arm. And once we began to do that, I went through that where they connect a catheter in your arm to the main artery of your heart. So I was learning a lot at a very fast pace, and I was still in the hospital because I was not well enough to get up, move around, walk, stand. My strength was not back. I was missing my kids terribly, and I really didn't want anyone to know about my condition because I also had a team, and I didn't want my team to think that I was less of a leader because I had this condition. And so I continued to do business with my clients over the phone, over video, and even in the hospital. I was inviting people to visit me just so that I can continue to do business. And I was very proud of myself because I was a go-getter, very gung-ho. You know, I have to make sure that I can provide for my kids. I don't want to let people down. And over the next few videos, you'll see how that can really take a toll on a person's mind. But at the same time, it helps you to remain active and stay positive. And so now that the doctors have just given me this diagnosis, the next month, which would be November 2019, is when we actively began chemotherapy. Chemotherapy led to radiation. Radiation led to different surgeries in my body, multiple fractures every week, rib fractures every day, rib fractures, broken bones, plasmacytomas. These are all words I'm throwing at you and you may not understand what they are, and I will definitely explain in the next video one by one. Going through this process, it was just very fast-paced at this point. I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, high risk, stage 4, P53 depletion, and everyone is different. Some people have never had broken bones with multiple myeloma. I'm sharing my story because from the looks of my chart, I've basically been through everything any cancer patient is going to go through. And according to the doctors, I've basically been through almost all of these things. And so I share my story with you because not only do I want to encourage you, but I want to share this information with you to help you not become discouraged and to know that you are a warrior and you're a fighter. Whether you feel like a fighter or not, it's in you and you're going to make it through this. And I look very well and very healthy today. As you can see my background, I'm in the hospital. I am now a year and a few months past my initial diagnosis, and I am still fighting multiple myeloma, and I am still a warrior. Just to show you what a port looks like. So from the catheter, because I was going to multiple procedures, they then put a port in my chest. And so you're going to hear the word port, and they're going to give you this option. There are a few options you can go with. You can go with a port that has the needle already stuck in it, or you can go with a port that does not have the needle already stuck in it. My suggestion is go with a port that does not have the needle stuck in it. Yes, you're going to get poked over and over in that one area. Yes, you're going to get stuck over and over in the port area. However, if you get a port, so this is a port, if you can see it. So this is technically a needle. The port is under my skin. It's a box that's under my skin, and this line here is actually the port that's under my skin, and it wraps around the back of my neck and down the middle of my chest, which you don't see anything. You're gonna feel the box under your chest. It's not very visible to the eye, but you're gonna feel it. So if you were to get a port with the needle already inserted, you're gonna go to sleep and you're not gonna be able to sleep comfortably the way you're used to, only because this sticks out a considerable amount. So if you're trying to sleep on your stomach, this is gonna press into your chest. It's gonna be very discomforting. If you sleep on your side, it kind of feels like it folds up and different things like that. So this is a port with a needle attached. Well, these needles for me, whenever I do any type of treatment or chemo, I just, you know, they put the needle in just for the treatment, and then they de-access it. So I get my port accessed every time I get treatment. So if you go with a port without the needle, it's just gonna be a plain box under your skin. So you're not gonna have all this white bandaging when you're at home. But as you can see, the box is here under my skin, but you don't see it. But I, to touch, can feel this hard box here. So it's going to, after a while, it's going to just feel like your regular skin, and this needle will not be protruding out of it when you're trying to sleep comfortably. So if you have any questions for me, I would love to do the best that I can to answer them. And if you have any questions about your condition, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. I can only share my experience that I've gone through thus far and the experience of my other colleagues. So I again want to thank you for visiting my channel, and I hope I've said something today that lessens the anxiety that you may have, and that helps you to get any questions answered that you may have. And I will see you in the next video. Please do not forget to subscribe, share the video, comment below, or bring another friend to listen in. And like I said, I'll do the very best that I can do to answer any questions you may have. If you have a personal question, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And see you soon.